Hi, folks. Welcome to Monday's edition of I Write Radio podcast, stroke videocast. I missed the presser this morning. I was out checking that the NHS was still operating for other things apart from coronavirus, and I can report it is at its optimum.
All right.
All right. I'm glad you had a good result.
Well, I got a lot of attention, blood taken, poked, prodded, so everything is operating as it should be, I have to say. In the New Sick Kids, by the way, which is also the Edinburgh New Sick Kids, which is also where the neurology department is, which is where I was.
All right.
Because you might be able to tell I'm no longer a child.
Never noticed.
Needless to say, I missed the presser. So I'm counting on you guys keeping me up to speed. Jimmy, you caught all of it, I think. So I wonder if you could give us a wee précis.
Well, before they got to the questions, it was basically Nicola laying out what's going to be happening this week in terms of transport guidelines published tomorrow, the actual lockdown guidelines changing on Thursday, and letting people know they don't actually change on Thursday. You'll get the guidelines and instructions on Thursday. Things actually change Friday morning. So it was all kind of procedural stuff. Also mentioning that there'll be more sectoral guidelines for people throughout this week and next week in preparation for hopefully moving to the next again phase.
So this is that would be for businesses, was it?
Yeah, aye. But it all kind of blew up the minute the questions came in, Norrie, because clearly, although Jackson Carlaw and the Scottish Tories have been hiding off Twitter for the last couple of days for obvious reasons, they'd been on the phone to their pet chums at the newspapers because everybody was trying to go on care homes again. And Nicola's admission that had they known at the start of March what they know now in terms of the science, they may have taken different decisions. But what all the press are trying to get her to admit, I didn't even admit to, they're wanting a kind of confession here, that they're trying to push that she has put 900 and odd infected people from hospital into care homes, and that's caused hundreds, if not thousands, of deaths. Now, they're never going to get that. I don't think we actually know the figure of how many of those 900 ever had or got the virus. So it was almost embarrassing for the press at some point. I mean, you had that daft wee lassie for the Sun coming out with nonsense that really got slapped down quite sharpish, mate. I don't know what you thought, Stuart. I thought some of the questioning today was bordering on infantile.
I came in, I missed the first 5 minutes. I came in with the PA guy, followed by the silly girl from the Record, followed by the girl from the Sun. Yeah, she got her arse felt.
What was the question?
Well, they were just trying to pin her down that she, they're after some data. They're after some data on the 921 old people that apparently were moved out of hospitals to make room for coronavirus patients.
Is this
bed lockers?
Is this the thing Neil Findlay was asking for, which was he wanted to know how many people had been moved out of hospital into care homes who died of coronavirus?
He's after that. They're also after they want information on how many people caught coronavirus in hospital as well. As I say, they're looking for data that
is impossible to provide.
As yet, it's not been published. I mean, Jean Freeman went on one at one point. She said, look, we intend to get that data, but what was happening right now is that Public Health Scotland are trying to put two databases together to come up with that data, and that kind of thing doesn't happen overnight.
Well, look, come on, no, let me just outline it a wee bit more, Norrie. At the start of this crisis, it wasn't known how long the incubation period was. If you bear this in mind, it's only as the weeks have rolled by that they realize you can have up to 21 days between a contact and developing the coronavirus. So it's a whole vague area to collect data for. And on top of that, wait a minute, I'll finish. And on top of that, the First Minister made it very clear. She's the very opposite of the Prime Minister last night. She said, at the time, we had all these old people bed blocking in hospital. If there was the coronavirus in the hospital and they caught the coronavirus while they were in the hospital, they could have died. We had a good reason to get them out of hospital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, going back to this question of getting data, deaths are registered where they occur. Okay, so I looked at the form you fill in for the death certificate that I got from my parents, and effectively there is nowhere to register. You don't say, oh, mum was living at home, went into hospital, came out of hospital, and died in a care home.
Yeah, but Norrie, what they don't know is who had the virus out of those 921. They'll never know.
But Stuart, they're asking for information that isn't collected.
Exactly. They don't know.
And they're asking for information that's impossible to collect.
That's what I'm saying.
They're also rewriting history in that you've got people like Finlay suggesting that all these people should have been tested when at the start of March and in early March we didn't have the testing capacity to test them, and all the scientific evidence was that testing people who were asymptomatic was wasting a test. We were using the test we did have to find out if people who were ill with the virus.
Yeah, and then they were working at best 70% confidence with the test. Well, it's a different world.
I just noticed a tweet just before we came on, guys, and it's for that Professor Devi Sridhar.
Oh, she's a good one.
University, who's bang on.
Yeah.
She's been harassed all morning by Ian McWhirter as to what scientific evidence she was presenting to the Scottish Government in March. She was presenting none. She joined the Scottish Government scientific team in April. But she just tweeted about 6 minutes ago, so it'll be about 10, 15 minutes ago now, that there is now evidence that this thing within children, that's similar to Kawasaki disease.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's now some evidence that is affecting young adults as well as children. So that shows you just how much the medical part of this virus is changing and how much we're finding out. And yet you get tin pot politicians and daft people who aren't even good enough to be politicians, so they're journalists, trying to second guess the First Minister's decisions on the science that was very different in March from what it is now.
I'm waiting for, and it'll probably be Jean Freeman, to turn around and say, well, if you knew all this in March, why didn't you tell us?
Yeah, well, probably.
Because it's all based on hindsight.
I've asked Miles Briggs and Neil Finlay the same question a few times on Twitter, and needless to say, there's never been an answer from either of them.
Have you not been blocked yet?
No, not yet. I always try to be polite to them.
Neil Finlay particularly annoys me. I mean, I'm presuming he's not stupid. So he must know full well that there is no way to ascertain where somebody who dies in a care home, through the information that's given to the register, where they were before they ended up in a care home and died.
Yeah,
he's looking for every person to have their history followed. I mean, what happens if they were at a Labour Party meeting?
Look, I think what I want to say is this: these so-called journalists, they think that they've obviously been put up to it, every single one of them, by their editor. We need a story. We need an SMB bad story. But what they always do every time they come on this press conference briefing and open their mouths is show how ignorant they are. Each one of us knows more about this virus than any one of those journalists.
Yeah, there was a particular piece of ignorance I actually thought wasn't ignorant. I thought it was deliberate. And I'll name him, Tom Martin from The Express, deliberately misled the public with his question. It was around contact tracers, and he was asking the First Minister, right, so we've got 660. You're now saying we're not going to need the 2,000. Why have you come to that decision? Now, that was deliberately misleading, because unless he doesn't pay any attention, we know we've got 660. There are 750 odd being trained, because we were told that last week, which takes us to almost 1,400. And the other 600 will be in place by the end of the month. But we're hoping not to need them. And we're hoping not to need them because the amount of new infections is going down. So we won't need to be tracing 2,000 contacts every day.
So, I mean, that's just one example. Almost every one of these journalists asks a stupid question at least once a week.
I think, I mean, the Tory government may well have been shown up, but I think the press has been shown up here as well. In Scotland, I'm really talking about, I mean, the Mirror and the Guardian have done a good job with the work they've done on chasing down Dominic Cummings. But up here, it's willful ignorance. See, I don't agree with you, Stuart. I don't think we know more than they do. I think they simply choose to ignore what they do know.
Well, can I ask you
get a gotcha story?
Well, maybe you do, but where did they learn about the coronavirus that we haven't studied? And when?
They've got the same information. They're just
I'm presuming they know as much as we do. I'm not saying that they.
But they're having to sit down and write stories as well. Don't forget, they're spending less time every day than they're spending less time every day in the last 100 days since this virus came along on the subject than we are. And none of us knew anything about it 3 months ago.
I mean, I'm sorry. It should be easier for a trained journalist to source information. And information like, for instance, what goes on a death certificate is not difficult to source.
Yeah. Well, that's, as I say, we've got example. We have discovered watching these press conferences, briefings, day after day after day, just how useless these journalists are. We were never exposed to them all. We just saw what they wrote. Now we know how they behave, and it hasn't done them any good. Us seeing it.
Well, certainly. I mean, as I say, I refuse to believe they're not as well informed as we are. I think they simply choose to ignore the information they've got in order to get a headline.
And bear in mind, this is the bunch of people that think that Paul Hutchin is the best journalist in Scotland.
Over a story about shoes.
Over a story about shoes. I mean, quality. Aye, they don't know what quality is.
Well, we'll get another look at what they're. In fact, we'll get a rare look when Dominic Cummings makes his speech this afternoon, guys, just to move it along a bit. I was want to chuck something at you, chaps, about this whole Cummings idea. And Stuart, you'll like this, mate, because it feeds into your theory that they just want to create chaos because chaos is. I was wondering if all of this is a way of dragging the other three nations back into line behind England. Because I wonder if they realised when they put the emergency powers in place, just how much power they were devolving to Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. And they've been shown up that Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland chose to go a different way and they didn't like it. And I'm thinking this whole Dominic Cummings thing is a way of blowing apart the other three nations going a different way. Because Nicola's message today about people towing the line, about sticking to the guidelines, it already looked diluted to me by what's happening down south, by police yesterday and last night tweeting that they'd been told 3 times, beat it, mate. If Dominic Cummings can do what he wants, so can I.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I think I should go down and visit my family in the south of England. After all, if I catch the virus, I've a 50-50 chance I'll die, and I'd rather go and see them. So I reckon if I can get south of the border, I'm okay once I get to England. I can go where I want, can't I?
Aye.
Well, it depends on your instincts.
Scotland, because Police Scotland are not stopping people on the roads.
Well, there you go. So I might as well head off down south tomorrow.
I think the Dominic Cummings thing was stupidity. And I mean, they've known about this for 7 weeks. They didn't keep it quiet because he didn't do anything wrong. You know, I mean, they hid it because they knew it would blow up. I don't think they quite understood how much it would blow up, or the fact the longer they kept it under wraps, the more people would have suffered and the angrier they would have been because of that.
Well, don't forget how we have discovered in the last, particularly the last 24 hours, how scared the entire Westminster bubble are of this man.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Dominic the dictator.
Well, you've got him rewriting the narrative this afternoon, because you've had countless countless councillors and loads of MPs tweeting exactly the same wording about how they had let people in positions of power know how upset the public were. If they're tweeting the same wording, that's because it's coming out of Dominic Cummings' 10 Downing Street.
I think Jackson Carlaw is not an outlier in this one. I think his position of, leave it up to Boris, Boris has decided, follow Boris, is what 90% of the Tory party will do. This is a decision for the man at the top. When he decides, we'll go with the decision. That way, we don't have to show where our moral compass points.
Because they don't have a moral compass, let's be honest, mate.
Well, I was wondering that if he goes ahead, Cummings goes ahead this afternoon, and he stands there and he makes a statement, and he becomes a story, and he breaks the civil service rules. Will that encourage senior civil servants to stand up and make statements against him? If he's breaking the rules, why can't they?
Well, there's a strange one with that rules thing, because if effectively they're talking about the special advisors code. I've got the word in here. Special advisors must not take public part in political controversy through any form of statement, whether in speeches or letters to the press. They must and would not normally speak in public for their minister or their department. He's way around that.
Not normally.
Not normally. He's also not in any department. He's not a special advisor. He's Svengali. He's your pound shop Rasputin. He doesn't have a title, does he?
I don't know. It's like, I think the scariest thing is there are people who don't see anything wrong with this.
Aye.
That's the thing that amazes me.
It's not a laughing matter, because some senior commentators have mentioned if he gets away with this, we're one stage closer to being like Hungary. Nobody's saying Hungary is in a good state at the moment.
Well, what we're seeing here is the government's daily press briefing being handed to an appointed friend of the Prime Minister. That's what he is. He's a friend of the Prime Minister, and he's going to be on national television addressing the nation. But how did we get to this quite so quickly?
Is this replacing...
No, it's not quick. He's been at it for 20 years, apparently.
Is this replacing the coronavirus daily update?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, mate. I think we'll probably go to the briefing afterwards. But who's going to ask the questions? All the press are going to be sat in the Rose Garden. What to question Dominic Cummings?
Well, the Rose Garden's 2 minutes away from Downing Street, though, wasn't it?
It's just at the back. Are they going to have that and then go to, I don't know, Dominic Raab giving us some nonsense? Because the story isn't going to be whatever happens after it.
No.
The story will be what happens at it. You've also got I don't know if any of you guys ever watched The West Wing. I think he's that arrogant. He thinks this is his Arnie Vinnick moment. He can stand in front of the press, take any questions he wants, answer everyone, because he thinks he's smarter than the whole planet. And that eventually we're going to get tired and just go, do you know what? I admire Dominic Cummings because he stood in front of the press and took all the questions.
Well,
apparently, I'm no expert, but apparently I think of him a bit like Sheldon out of Big Bang Theory. And other people have been saying it's not that he's got an autistic son. That was a flyer, yes, that's supposed to be an excuse yesterday. The fact is, Dominic Cummings is autistic. He's a genius and scary.
That whole autism story was started on Twitter by a bot. It was started by a bot farm. He doesn't have an autistic son. And frankly, that went all the way to the top guys, because the Prime Minister used the phrase medical condition yesterday. So they knew the autism thing was coming. Or why would they use it? The Prime Minister used those words, and then the rumour started on Twitter that his son had autism. If his son's got autism, how on earth has his missus never mentioned that in all the stuff she writes about their home life?
Yeah. And what about his uncle? Apparently died on, I don't know, April the 4th or something.
Yeah, well, he was that bothered about it. He wasn't there at the time. If he was that close to his uncle, perhaps his uncle, who was ill, perhaps his uncle's children, Dominic's cousins, should have been the ones offering childcare because they live in London.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm quite prepared to accept that this guy's his chaos theory thing, where you've got to break everything to rebuild it, is belief. But within that, like a lot of these theories, the unforeseen consequences of it are often the opposite of what you're trying to achieve.
Well, this is the worrying thing. But generally speaking, history tells us out of this you get an authoritarian government.
I think we've got an authoritarian government, and that worries me, because I think a consequence of this could be we end up with a cabal at the top of government who are so hated, disrespected, and despised by the population that they do what they want because it can't get worse for them, and they've got an 80-seat majority.
Aye. And there's nobody in that party and no mechanism within that party really to remove them.
Well, if they win this, Jimmy, the guys that have put their head above the parapet and said it's outrageous, he should be sacked, are going to have no voice.
Well, think about it. He's not going to be standing up there this afternoon to tell us he's going. He would just go out the back door.
He's such an outlier. I cannot make a guess at what he's going to say.
But you must have read the Carol Cadwallader piece as well, and she reckons he's been there or thereabouts for the last 20 years, and it doesn't really matter if he goes, because he'll still be there. He simply won't be in the public eye. He'll be back there working with Gove. Can I finish? Working with Gove. And in an office outside, won't be no longer a number 10, but he'll still be doing the same job.
He won't. I said yesterday, he won't have anything like the power that he has at the moment if he resigns or if he's sacked. Because right now, he can instruct civil servants on what to do.
Well, he's already done so.
He can't do that if he's sacked or resigns. He'll never have the position of power that he has now.
Well, that's a good argument. I know that's a very good argument.
I think we should be more worried about Boris. Boris is somebody who's nobody sees no to Boris Johnson.
I think they're beyond the tipping point now. The sort of feel I get for this is that the floodgates will open. Everything will start getting leaked. The discipline that they had, that Cummings had, and therefore Johnson has gone. I think that their tight little government.
Well, look.
Wow.
Right now, we don't
undermined by civil servants.
Yeah. Right now, we don't know what's going to be said. But if you look at the papers, the Express and the Sun, the Murdoch papers and Desmond, they're supporting Cummings. The Murdoch papers are
not the Scottish Sun. It's not.
The Murdoch papers are against Cummings. The Barclay brothers with the Telegraph and that seem to be on the fence. And we know where the Guardian and the Mirror are.
The fact that he lost the Mail was quite important.
They lost the Mail.
I know that Paul Dacre's moved on, but the Mail was very much, and still is very much, a conservative newspaper. Their headline today was astonishing for me. What planet do they live on? But I think one of the weird ones, and it is, you have to remember, it's England we're talking about, guys. No, the bishops, mate. Have you ever known bishops to come out and slate a prime minister the way that they did this morning? That's probably the first time in 300 or 400 years that the bishops have slated the power in England. And you have to remember, this is all playing out in England. Whatever England decides, we just get.
Mm.
The bishops still have political power and political influence in that country. And I've never heard so many bishops come out and have a go at a politician as they did this morning.
Kind of my point. If you drive this group of politicians into a corner, they will turn on you. And if that means the whole country suffers, I think they'll be quite prepared to go a lot further. I can see them turning around and saying, see all that money we spent at coronavirus? Austerity times 10.
Oh, well, do you know where that leads?
Well,
that leads straight to a dictatorship or something like it, if you go down that road.
No deal Brexit, austerity. It's going to make the last 10 years look like it was a picnic.
All right.
Norrie, I know he's got an 80-seat majority, but can he lose 2 chancellors in the space of 6 months?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think?
I think
he
normally
can.
when a prime minister loses 1 chancellor, they do.
I think today, if he gets away with it, which I think he will, we're looking at a very, very, very dangerous future.
I mean, a lot will depend on what the 22 committee come out with. I'd like to see them coming out and saying Cummings has got to go, and see what would happen if Cummings chose to go toe-to-toe with them. Because that would then be a split in the Tory party.
Well, the mental thing is, after that election in December, they'd got rid of all the rebels. They'd got rid of all the rebels. They'd either not stood for Parliament, or, they'd decided to toe the line. And inside 3-4 months, he's created another group of rebels on the back bench. There's only 18 of them at the moment, but 18's a start.
You need 81.
No, you need 40.
I need 40.
Oh, sorry, 41. I think we'll call that a day for this one, because we're going to come back later.
I think so, aye.
After Mr. Cummings' statement. Just to see, because I don't think any of us know what he's going to say.
No, but I'm quite happy to get the burger done and maybe get the popcorn out and just sit down and enjoy it.
Okay.
I might even go and get a beer.
Well, thanks for getting me up to speed on today's First Minister's presser. Thanks for listening, folks. Thanks, Jimmy Hutton, Stuart Lockhead. I'm Norrie Stewart, and we'll see you later in the day, I think, folks.
Okay, cheerio.
Thanks for watching. Catch you later, people.